Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the world of online learning.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, should be a good one. We've got a ton of research,
Oh, wow.
articles, and personal stories all about this topic.
So,
Yeah.
what are we thinking? Like, what's the big picture here?
Well, I think everyone kind of had this idea in their head of like what online learning
Uh,
is.
yeah.
You know, you can learn from anywhere in the world at your own pace. You can tailor the experience to your needs.
Mm-hmm.
But, we got to talk about some of the challenges too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, can it really be as effective as in-person learning?
Yeah, and I mean, just from a practical standpoint, what about tech issues and, that feeling of isolation that I think we all kind of got a taste of during the pandemic?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So to get into all of this, we've got research from Kabul University looking at trends in e-learning.
Interesting.
We've got insights from experts at MIT and Cincinnati Children's Hospital,
Okay.
really focusing on how to create effective online learning environments.
Mm-hmm.
And we even have firsthand accounts from educators who had to completely shift their teaching overnight when everything went remote during the pandemic.
Wow. Yeah, I bet they've got some stories.
I know, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's going to be, I think, a really fascinating look
Yeah.
into this whole world that's kind of exploding right now.
Exactly. So why don't we start with the good stuff,
Okay.
the benefits?
Yeah. Let's hear it.
That kind of drew everyone to online learning in the first place.
Right.
Okay, so top of the list, flexibility.
Oh, for sure. The schedules, the commute. I mean,
Yes.
you're in charge, right?
Exactly. It's like you can finally fit education into your life no matter how busy you are.
Right. And our sources all point to this as a major plus.
Yeah.
Especially for working professionals, parents, anyone who's got a lot going on. It's like finally education can work for you.
Exactly. And then on top of that, there's accessibility.
Right?
Like suddenly it doesn't matter where you live. You can be in a rural town and have access to the same resources as someone at like a huge university in a big city.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like democratizing education.
Right. And it's not just about location.
Uh-huh.
Our sources also talk about how online learning can be so beneficial for people with disabilities or anyone who might struggle in a traditional classroom setting.
Totally.
Yeah.
Different learning styles, different needs.
Hmm.
Online learning can accommodate that.
Exactly. And that brings us to personalization. Like you can truly tailor the experience to how you learn best.
Mm-hmm.
If something's tough,
Mm-hmm.
you can rewind, rewatch, review at your own pace.
Take your time, right?
Exactly. And if you're getting it, you can move ahead without feeling held back.
Yeah, no more like waiting for the slowest person in the class.
Right. And of course, we can't forget about cost.
Oh, right, the money.
Yes.
Mm.
Because online learning can potentially save you a lot of money.
I mean, think about it. No commuting, no campus housing, and sometimes even textbooks are digital, so you don't even have to pay for those.
Exactly. So it makes education way more attainable for a lot of people.
For sure.
Okay, so we've got flexibility, accessibility, personalization, and cost effectiveness.
That's a pretty good list.
Right. It's compelling.
Yeah.
But now I think we need to talk about the challenges.
Okay, yeah, the flip side.
Because let's be real, there are some.
Yeah.
And one that comes up again and again is that feeling of isolation.
Yeah.
Even though you have all this flexibility, it also takes a ton of self-discipline
Yeah.
and motivation to stay on track.
For sure. And I mean, that lack of face-to-face interaction with instructors and classmates, that can be tough for some people.
Mm-hmm. Especially after, what we all went through with the pandemic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so many people in our sources talked about how isolating it felt.
Right. And it's not just about the social aspect either.
Right.
There are practical challenges too.
Yeah.
Like what happens when the technology doesn't cooperate?
Ugh, yeah. Tech issues.
Unreliable internet connections,
Yeah.
software glitches, or just not having the skills to navigate all these online platforms.
Totally. I mean, our sources from MIT really emphasize how important it is to address this digital divide.
Mm-hmm.
Because not everyone has equal access to technology or the support they need to thrive in an online environment.
Exactly. And that brings up another big challenge assessment.
Oh, yeah. How do you really know if someone's learning?
Right. Are we just testing their tech skills?
Yeah.
Or their actual understanding of the material?
Mm-hmm.
And some of our sources suggest using a variety of assessment methods
Okay.
to get a more accurate picture.
So, like, not just multiple choice quizzes.
Right. More open-ended questions, projects, even live presentations and discussions.
Interesting.
Yeah. And this all makes me think about the role of the instructor.
Right.
Because it seems like you need a whole different skill set
Mm-hmm.
to teach effectively online.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not just about lecturing anymore.
Right.
You have to be a facilitator, a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
a tech support specialist.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're wearing all the hats.
Right, and you have to find ways to create that sense of community
Hmm.
in a virtual space.
That's a tall order.
It is.
Yep.
So it sounds like both the learner and the educator need to kind of shift their mindset
Yeah,
to really make online learning work.
absolutely. It's a whole new world.
It is. And we've just scratched the surface. We'll be right back after a short break to dig deeper into some specific strategies for success in online learning from both the learner's and the instructor's perspective. Stay tuned.
Sounds good. Before the break, we were talking about some of the downsides of online learning.
Right, like that feeling of isolation and all the extra work it takes for both students and teachers.
Yeah, and it got me thinking about students with special needs.
Oh, interesting.
Because, our sources talk about how the pandemic really highlighted
Yeah.
the pros and cons of online learning for those students.
Right. Like on the one hand, it can be a much more accessible
Yeah,
and less stressful environment.
for sure. For someone with ADHD or anxiety, they might actually find it easier to focus online.
Right. Less distractions, more control over their learning.
Exactly. And for students with physical disabilities, online learning can remove a lot of barriers
Well, it's true.
that they might face in a traditional classroom.
So it's almost like the things that some people see as downsides can actually be advantages for certain students.
Yeah, it really depends on the individual.
Right. And their specific needs.
Exactly. But of course, there are challenges too,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
like students who rely on in-person therapies or support services.
Right. They probably had a really tough time adjusting.
Yeah, definitely. It just goes to show that flexibility is key. You can't have a one-size-fits-all approach to online learning.
I think that's a really important point.
And our sources actually give a great example of how this can work in practice.
really?
Yeah, so Victoria University in Australia,
Okay.
they had to completely transition their anatomy and physiology courses online during the pandemic.
Wow. And those courses usually involve a lot of hands-on lab work, right?
Right, exactly, like dissections and stuff. So it was a huge challenge.
I bet.
But they managed to create a really effective learning experience.
That's amazing. How do they do it?
Well, they incorporated all sorts of online resources,
Okay.
computer programs, virtual simulations,
Oh.
things like that. So even without the actual lab component,
Right.
students were still able to learn the material.
That's really impressive.
And what's even more impressive is that student satisfaction remained high.
Wow. So they actually enjoyed it.
Yeah, it seems like it. And one of the key strategies they used was building a strong sense of community,
Oh, interesting.
both for students and instructors.
Okay.
So they created these online groups where educators could connect, share their experiences, troubleshoot problems, learn from each other.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that idea.
Right, because even though you're physically separated,
Yeah,
you can still create that sense of connection and support.
exactly. And that can make a huge difference in how people experience online learning.
Totally. And speaking of community, online learning can also connect students with experts from all over the world.
Oh, that's true.
Like, imagine being able to attend a virtual seminar led by a world-renowned researcher in your field.
Right. That's something that wouldn't be possible in traditional classroom.
Exactly. It's breaking down barriers and creating all these new opportunities.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's not get too carried away here.
Okay.
We also need to talk about some of the concerns,
Right.
like student engagement.
Yeah. It's easy to get distracted at home.
It is. And our sources from Thinkific, they talk about the importance of dynamic learning design
Okay.
to keep students engaged.
So, like, making it more interactive.
Exactly.
Right.
Quizzes, surveys, polls, online debates, anything to keep them actively involved.
That makes sense. And this is where technology can really shine,
Right.
like with gamification and virtual reality.
Oh, yeah. I'm really excited about the potential of VR in education.
Me too. Imagine learning history by actually stepping into ancient Rome.
Oh my gosh, that would be so cool.
Right, or practicing surgery in a simulated operating room.
It would revolutionize how we learn.
Totally. Make it more engaging, more effective, and dare I say, more fun.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
But of course, we also need to be aware of the potential downsides of technology.
Right.
Some of our sources express concerns about misinformation
Oh, yeah.
and data security.
Yeah, those are valid concerns.
Like, we have to be really careful about the information we're consuming online and make sure we're protecting our personal data.
Oh, sure. And educational institutions have a big role to play here, too.
Right.
They need to implement strong security measures and educate students about online safety and digital citizenship.
So it's a shared responsibility.
Exactly. We all have a part to play in making online learning safe and ethical.
Okay. And speaking of ethics,
Yeah.
what about academic integrity?
Oh, right. Cheating.
Because let's be honest, online learning can make it easier to plagiarize or collaborate inappropriately on assignments.
Yeah, that's true. So how do we prevent that?
Well, our sources suggest designing assessments that are harder to cheat on, like open-ended questions, projects, presentations, things like that.
Interesting.
And of course, educating students about academic honesty
Yeah, that's important.
and the consequences of plagiarism.
Absolutely. It's about building a culture of integrity.
Right. And this actually brings us to an interesting concept that I hadn't heard of before.
Oh, what's that?
It's called bichronous online learning.
By Cronus.
Yeah. Did I say that right?
I think so.
Okay, good. So basically, it's a blended approach
Okay.
that combines asynchronous learning,
Mm-hmm.
where students work at their own pace,
Right.
with synchronous learning, where there are scheduled live sessions.
Oh, interesting. So it's kind of like a hybrid model.
Exactly. And our sources from North Carolina State University,
Okay.
they found that incorporating those live sessions could really help with community building
Oh, that makes sense.
and personalized support.
Yeah, because you're getting the best of both worlds.
Right. The flexibility of online learning
Mm,
with the benefits of real-time interaction.
I like.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea. And it just goes to show that there's no one right way to do online learning.
Totally. It's all about finding what works best for the students and the instructors.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
being open to experimentation and innovation.
For sure. And that brings us to one of the most exciting aspects of online learning, in my opinion.
Oh, what's that?
Its potential to support lifelong
Oh,
learning.
yes, I love that.
Because we're no longer limited by time or location.
Right. You can learn anything you want at any age.
Exactly. And our sources from the University of Cadiz and the University of Seville,
Okay.
they really emphasize how important lifelong learning is in today's world.
It makes sense. With technology changing so rapidly,
Right.
we need to constantly be updating our skills and knowledge.
Exactly. And online learning makes it so easy to do that.
It does. There are courses and programs available for literally anything you can think of.
I know, it's amazing. It's like
Yeah.
opening up a world of possibilities.
Yeah, and it's not just about staying competitive in the workforce.
Right.
It's about that love of learning and that desire to keep growing and exploring new things.
Absolutely. So what do you think, where do we go from here?
Well, we've talked about the benefits, the challenges, the potential pitfalls, and the inspiring possibilities. But what does the future hold for online learning?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Yeah.
And you know what? We're going to explore some potential answers
Oh.
right after a quick break. So don't go anywhere.
Okay, so we're back, and I'm really curious to hear what you think about the future of online learning.
Yeah, me too. It's like a crystal ball kind of thing, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves,
Right.
what about the technology that's shaping online learning right now?
Oh, yeah, good point. So one platform that comes up a lot in our research is Canvas.
Canvas.
Yeah, it's a learning management system.
An LMS.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And our sources from Cal Poly, they talk about how they're using it in their online courses.
Interesting. What are they saying about it?
Well, they really like how it's designed for asynchronous learning.
Right. So students can work at their own pace.
Exactly. And it also has all these built-in tools for interaction and collaboration.
Oh, cool.
Like
Well-
what? Discussion forums, group project, features, things like that.
So it's not just about delivering content.
Nope.
It's about creating a space where students can actually connect and learn from each other.
Exactly. And that's what I think is so exciting about the future of online learning.
Yeah.
It's not just about replacing the classroom. It's
Yeah.
about creating something entirely new,
Something better.
hopefully. And our sources are pointing to some really cool advancements.
Okay, like what?
Well, AI-driven, personalized learning, adaptive assessments, immersive virtual reality.
Wow, hold on. Slow down.
Sorry, I get excited.
I know, me too. This stuff is really cool. So what do you mean by like AI-driven personalized learning?
So imagine a platform that uses AI to tailor the learning experience to each individual student.
Okay.
Like it adjusts the difficulty level, gives personalized feedback, even recommends resources.
It's like having a personal tutor.
Right. And then with VR, you could have students exploring historical sites, dissecting virtual cadavers, practicing complex tasks.
All from home.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless.
This is blowing my mind.
Okay.
But I have to ask.
Yeah.
What about the downsides?
Right, because there are always downsides.
Like, are we getting too reliant on technology?
That's a valid concern.
And what about access and equity?
Yeah, those are all things we need to be thinking about.
Because technology can be a powerful tool,
Mm-hmm.
but it can also be a barrier.
Right. So we need to make sure that everyone has equal access to the technology and the support they need.
Exactly. It's about using technology to empower, not to exclude.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh, okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into online learning,
Yeah.
what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
I think the most important thing to remember is that online learning is constantly evolving. It
Right.
has its challenges,
Mm,
but it also has the potential to transform education in really amazing ways.
absolutely. And I think it's crucial for both learners and educators to have that growth mindset, to be
Yeah.
open to new ideas,
Right.
to experiment, because who knows what the future holds.
I mean, we could have holographic classrooms, AI learning companions, virtual field trips to other planets.
It's mind-blowing.
It is. It's a
Yeah.
really exciting time to be involved in education.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into online learning.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you learned something new and that you'll continue to explore this fascinating and ever-changing world.
Yes, keep learning, everyone.
And we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.